In the quiet town of Willow Creek, where the mist clings to the ground and the ancient oaks cast long, eerie shadows, there's a house on the hill that nobody dares approach after sundown. For generations, children have whispered stories of the Holloway Mansion, its windows forever dark, its gates rusted shut. But for those who know the truth, the fear runs deeper than childish tales. It is the fear of what lingers inside, the restless, vengeful spirit of a soul that has never found peace. Ethan Carter was not one to believe in ghost stories. A recent college graduate, he had always considered himself a man of logic. When he inherited the Holloway Mansion from a distant relative, he saw only opportunity, a chance to restore the crumbling estate, and perhaps turn it into a bed and breakfast. He arrived on a gray October afternoon, the sky heavy with the promise of rain. The house loomed above him, its facade scarred by time, the iron gates groaning as he forced them open. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, but Ethan pressed on, convinced that the stories were nothing more than the product of overactive imaginations. Inside, the mansion was a labyrinth of dust and shadows. The grand staircase creaked beneath his feet, portraits of stern-faced ancestors watching his every move. As he explored room after room, Ethan felt an uneasy chill settle over him, as if unseen eyes were tracking his progress. He dismissed it as nerves, the product of too many sleepless nights and too much caffeine. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the house seemed to come alive with a different energy, a cold, suffocating presence that pressed in from all sides. That first night, Ethan awoke to the sound of whispering. It was faint, barely audible above the wind rattling the windows, but it sent a shiver down his spine. He sat up, heart pounding, straining to catch the words. They seemed to swirl around him, a chorus of voices speaking in urgent, desperate tones. He stumbled out of bed, flashlight in hand, and followed the whispers down the hallway. They led him to a locked door at the end of a narrow corridor, a door he hadn't noticed before. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if pleading with him to open it. The next morning, Ethan searched for the key, determined to put his fears to rest. He found it hidden inside an old jewelry box, nestled among tarnished rings and faded photographs. With trembling hands, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was small and bare, save for a single rocking chair and a cracked, dust-covered mirror. As he approached, he caught a glimpse of movement in the glass, a shadow flickering behind him, gone as quickly as it appeared. The air grew colder, his breath fogging in the gloom. On the wall, someone had scrawled a message in jagged letters. She never left. That night, the dreams began. Ethan found himself wandering endless hallways, the walls closing in around him. He heard the sound of weeping, soft and mournful, echoing through the darkness. A woman's voice called his name, her tone pleading, desperate for help. He would wake drenched in sweat, the room icy cold, convinced that he was not alone. As the days passed, the haunting grew more intense. Objects moved on their own, a lamp crashing to the floor, doors slamming shut with no wind. The whispers became screams, filling the house with a cacophony of anguish. Ethan's reflection in the mirror would twist and contort, his eyes hollow and black. He began to see her, the woman from his dreams, standing at the foot of his bed, her hair tangled, her face pale and gaunt. Her eyes bore into his, filled with a sorrow that chilled him to the core. Desperate for answers, Ethan delved into the mansion's history. He pored over old journals and newspaper clippings, piecing together the tragic story of Abigail Holloway, the last of the Holloway line. Abigail had been accused of witchcraft by the townspeople, blamed for a series of misfortunes that had befallen Willow Creek. She was locked away in the very room Ethan had discovered, left to waste away in isolation. It was said that her cries echoed through the halls for weeks, unanswered and ignored, until the day the house fell silent. No one had seen her again, and her body was never found. The more Ethan learned, the more he felt her presence. He realized that the mansion was not just haunted, it was a prison, binding Abigail's tormented spirit to the place of her suffering. The air grew heavier with each passing night, the boundaries between the living and the dead wearing thin. Ethan knew he had to help her, to break the cycle of pain that chained her to the mortal world. On the final night, as a storm raged outside, Ethan returned to the locked room. He lit a candle and spoke Abigail's name, his voice trembling. The temperature plummeted, frost creeping across the walls. The mirror shimmered, and Abigail appeared before him, her form flickering like a dying flame. Her eyes were filled with longing, her hands reaching out for release. Ethan whispered words of forgiveness, promising her that she was not forgotten, that her suffering had not been in vain. The house shook with a terrible force, the screams of the past rising to a fever pitch. But as dawn broke, the air grew still. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a profound silence. Ethan left Willow Creek soon after, the memory of Abigail's sorrow etched into his soul. The townspeople noticed that the mansion no longer seemed so foreboding, its windows reflecting the morning sun instead of swallowing it. But on quiet nights, when the wind howls through the trees, some say you can still hear the faintest echo of a woman's voice, free at last, but forever a part of the legend of the Holloway Mansion.